I think everyone is trying to kill the phone to reality. And don't you think that this is one closer step to placing a chip?
We're all going to be walking with implants at some point, isn't it?
We're talking all AI, and we are saying the world isn't computing. All is in chipsets, GPUs, TPUs, or whatever you call it. And it's one company
So
produced it.
it's a very massive market and a very small, tight choke point controlling the flow of the water. Let's put it that way. And the money. Let's put a big headline for the name of this podcast. We don't care about size anymore.
Exactly. So in that context, please. So
All right. Mr. Amir Abdelazim, welcome to
Alex.
2026. How are you feeling for this year?
Very optimistic, little bit anxious, but year of growth. What about you?
Likewise, lots of things in the work. So looking forward to reaping the benefits this year. Now, before we let our audience get too bored, first of all, thanks to all of those listening. We appreciate the feedback, always taking into consideration. And we're going to start the year with the biggest changes that are taking place this year since the agricultural revolution. And those who don't know, agricultural revolution is when we went from basically, being hunter-gatherers to growing food and, settling in one place. We're not nomadic people anymore. Then, of course, we got horses and buggies and stuff like that. Then we got, of course, combiners, the machines, the tractors. Once we got the engine, the cars. And now it's arguably the biggest term in technology and humanity that probably took place since, I think it's bigger than probably the conception of internet. So we got some massive predictions for 2026. It's something that we notice no other experts are talking about at the moment. You get a lot of headlines left and right, but I mean, what are those big stories that you think are going to absolutely break everybody's minds in this upcoming year?
What really it's hitting me on the coming years is what I think is like needs to be collected together. China is gonna be printing its own chips, and I think that's one big one. On the big one, and then we're gonna explain throughout the episode why I think this is so big. I think everyone is trying to kill the phone. Everyone is trying to kill the screen, and big like enemy of the state now is the screen and the phone and the smartphone. CES this year had a lot of announcements on that direction. Probably agentic AI fights with actually talent fight, and I think Meta and the announcement of their acquisition of Manus, your favorite
One of my favorite AI tools, yes.
AI tools, is one of them. But if I summarize my predictions for the coming 2 years, world gonna be split. That's split between two ecosystems: east to west, west center, western hemisphere, as Mr. Trump tried to keep saying it, and eastern hemisphere, which bundles Europe with Russia. Let's see. That actually split with the big evolutions of AI means we're gonna start seeing a big AI fight to make sure that each hemisphere is self-sustainable, or each trisphere is self-sustainable, or let's see where we land with these hemispheres. But there's a big movement in here. And the second one is the space. Is AI in the space? Data centers in the space. We've seen the break of it last year, but this year I'm thinking that we're gonna start talking about it as mainstream. AI in the space. What about you? What do you think? What do you predict for this year?
Well, I think we're going to get into this deeper in the conversation, maybe without teasing our audience for too long, to give them a bit more context. We got some three major stories that we're going to cover in this episode. The first one is the CES announcements. And as some people may not know, CES is one of the first, or it is the first tech conference of the year, major tech conference. And this is where we get a preview of what kind of technologies are coming out for the consumer market and also for businesses over the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months. And there's going to be some big stories there. They're going to absolutely blow people's minds, and nobody's talking about what Nvidia and Mercedes are about to do. And that's going to be right down your alley. Now, you did touch on the Chinese chipsets. Again, for people that are not aware, there's been a long-standing kind of unipolar world where the West, let's call it the English-speaking countries, for simplicity's sake, I guess Western Europe, US, Canada, UK, maybe we can bundle Australia and New Zealand in that category as well. They've been typically the leaders of innovation when it comes to technology. But the world dominance by US and the Western countries kind of fading and is becoming a multipolar world. It's changing, and China has been squeezed. They've been kind of choked for many, many years. They've been sanctioned. They've been prevented from getting their hands on certain technologies. And it's a very common image that people have in their mind that China is known for IP theft, for stealing intellectual property from Western countries. Now, this is partially a forced hand. It's not something that maybe they're doing by choice, but we've put them in that position. And what nobody's talking about, what Amir, I think you're going to absolutely blow everybody's mind, is what nobody's talking what Russia is doing. We see the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, obviously, but nobody's talking about what Russia is doing on the innovative side of things. And that's also tying into the chipset story. So we'll see if Russia and China's approach to innovation is going to pay off in the next decade, let's say. And I finally gave our audience a preview of what's happening in the agentic AI world. And basically, Meta just executed one of the biggest heists in tech in recent history. Now, they didn't steal Instagram or they didn't steal WhatsApp, or, what they stole is basically some of the best talent in the agentic AI world. And those who don't know, agentic AI is that you don't need to type things manually or search things manually. You give a command, the AI is running in the background, you get the delivered results. And previously, when you're Facebook as somebody at Meta, Facebook as somebody who monetizes attention, they know what school you went to. They know what kind of girls you have a crush on in university. They know, what kind of groups you're in, if you got a dog, if you don't have a dog, and they monetize people showing ads. But now they're going to be able to not only know what you want, but make your wishes come true. Is there anything I missed there, Amir, or anything else that you want to tease our audience with before we
You,
get into the
you
sauce?
wrapped it, but actually the irony is the story of ASML. The stereotype has been that China is stealing IPs, but actually China is accusing Meta of stealing Manus. It's very funny. Like,
So it's like a vicious
so let's
circle.
see.
ASML is stealing stuff from China. China, well, I guess we should say the Dutch government, which we had a big story last year about, and that was very recent for our audience. We have our YouTube channel here. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. But one of the biggest stories that we had on our podcast recently is how um, the Dutch government basically privatized or took away, some Chinese chip manufacturing. China got their payback, and of course, nobody's talking how Meta and Mark Zuckerberg are stealing back from China in a different way. So maybe before we get into, as always, thanks for those who are subscribed already and those who are watching us on LinkedIn or other channels. Keep in mind, we do have full episodes where we don't just give you the tricks, but we reveal how to get there and what is the secret sauce in the business decisions and power plays. So make sure to like, subscribe everywhere. And any other wishes for this year before we get into our first story, Amir?
I would say maybe we should also tell our audience before we dig deeper how the TrickCast season 2026 will look like. So we're doing some changes, like everyone. So, and I think starting this year, we will be also hosting some of the magicians, and hopefully we will have a trio bunch. We're still keeping our theme of actually talking about three topics now: affairs of the technology, but also getting heavyweight actually magicians and scholars now with us in the room commenting on the news themselves. We're gonna try our luck with some multi-language. I'm looking forward to see that if we mix between other languages into
Might
the
make some Arabic in there, maybe even some German, but obviously still going to be available in English as well. And
uh,
Amir, I know with your humble nature, you're underplaying it a little bit, but you're somebody that spent 40 plus years in the telecom space working with massive companies that everybody uses, all over the world, many different countries. You help bring more than 1 billion people online in conflict zones and obviously involved in institutions like Harvard. So the type of people, the business magicians that you're spending time with, not a lot of people know, but there's some big hitters, some big players. So we're excited to bring those names and their strategies and things that are discussed only in the boardrooms that we don't get to hear in the headlines so much. So that's what's coming up this season. Why don't we get into the first story? So would you like to kick this one off for us, Amir?
yes, CS. I love that conference. I don't know why they put it on that first week, or actually, I know why they put it on the first week of the year. So they just kick and open. but it's always not going to be your first instinct to take your first plane to the US to attend CES, unless you're really in the US. So it's definitely one of the conferences I would love to start the year once inside CES. So this year they have been a lot of announcements. I think our audience can go through details of the announcement, but I would like to bundle it into three families actually. So one family is let's kill the screen. It's still evolving since last year. So we've been X-Real, we have seen Xiaomi, we have seen Ximu, which I like. It's very interesting Chinese provider. They all now stepping heavily into the AR glasses. And interestingly enough, they're mixing the AR glasses now with a very interesting new tech. So originally, we would see that the glass will actually present on the glass itself. So there would be a projector pushing into the glass from here. Nowadays, the new trend is a projector to your retina. So you would be normally seeing, but there's a small text or subtext projected to your eye as if it's a screen with a retina. So few of those announcements are really interesting. X-Real, I would like to give it a lot of attention here. They're really doing good things there.
Can we
And then
get a
with
little bit deeper there, just to simplify it for people that are not aware? Instead of you looking at a screen and reading everything, like think of Tony Stark and Iron Man, that he's got that display and he's seeing things, even though it's kind of a hologram, right? It's not actually writing on an LCD display, but this is taking it one step further where it's projecting this directly into your eyeball, more or less. So think
exactly.
of it almost like, to give a maybe a simplistic comparison, instead of you having like a caveman to plug in your headphones into your ear and hear the sound, the vibrations, you basically think of like the headphones that they vibrate on like your skull and they're playing the sound directly into your brain, more or less.
Almost the same. So and that thing is actually I would think like a projector on a wall, and retina is by nature actually is the wall where the light projects on. And the science behind it here, and I think this is where we're going to see a lot of optimization, is that text or the new visual will be in front of you on the professional on how you see, but it's also not disturbing how you see. So it's in the corner. It's like your eye now is the corner of a screen and you receive notifications. There was one demo in CS also placing place marks on objects in front of you, or Xgimi exactly actually also showed how you it will show you how to fix something in 3D while you're doing it. So interesting use cases, bringing augmented reality to reality in reality, and but don't you think that this is one closer step to placing a chip?
We're all going to be walking with implants at some point, isn't it? Right? We're all going to have a Neuralink. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind. Like if you don't use AI at the moment, you will fall behind. So I
Yeah.
think I don't know how I feel about it. Maybe we can discuss that at another point, but it looks like it's going that way.
It was one of the last announcement of last year. We didn't talk about it, but actually Neuralink got approval to start broadcasting to humans already. So let's see how the chips will be looking. I'll be interesting to see if Elon will be the first to put it on himself. So the second family in CS, which was also very interesting, is the family of agentic computers. So far we have been using computers or laptops or machines as we have a machine, there's a computer, you install ChatGPT or you install Gemini or you install whatever you need, and you start actually acting it. Now you receive a new laptop that is fully agentic. So and it's actually again one more step closer to no screens. So Lenovo launched an agentic machine and others. Interesting enough, and I'm gonna mention that name, and hopefully I'm calling you Tarek, that you're gonna be with us here. So Humain of Saudi Arabia and Tarek Amin. So they were very Tarek has been very visionary and executive on his visionary as usual. Like and Humain in Saudi Arabia was almost the first agentic computer that been launched last year, and obviously they were one or few steps ahead of all the other players. So Lenovo came out this year. In CS, we've seen few agentic computers there. That's the second family on CS. Third one is physical AI, and that's where the fun happens. So we were all thinking that Nvidia will announce new chipset or make it the star that they're announcing a new chipset like every year. This big year, Nvidia was focusing on announcing what they're going to do in the physical AI area. So they announced the small robot that they're doing jointly, but their biggest was actually their new venture was Mercedes. What do you think about Mercedes?
Well, why don't you tell us the story first, and then we can decide what's the conclusion of that story.
Once I saw the announcement, it's mind blowed me because we've been talking about the German industry, the automotive industry is being in trouble with electric cars. And like Tesla, right, and Chinese automotives left, and everyone, and the motors, and the interesting edge of the combustion engine, where the German cars were actually taking the lead. And looks feels for me like Mercedes found its own niche, and their niche here is, so we're now going to start seeing the vision analytical logic, and Nvidia is really stepping into there, and they announced it with a different model that is highly efficient with 6 GPUs together. They are able to do a human like visual analysis with decision inside the cars. And they said the Mercedes CLA will be the first car to have this, and it's almost gonna felt like an exclusivity between Nvidia and Mercedes on that new fully autonomous car based on Nvidia. Um, and just to get the feeling, how long it takes you to run a command on ChatGPT?
You mean to actually ask the question and then hit enter?
Yeah, so
Let's say, 15 seconds, let's say.
15 seconds. So, and assume if we skip the asking question part,
You mean to hit enter and get the result?
yeah,
Probably, like by the time it processes, let's say 3 to 5 seconds.
3 to 5 seconds. Can you imagine with me now that you are riding a car in 60 kilometers per hour and you saw an
I'm there.
alert?
I'm next to you in the car. I'm here. We're holding hands.
Yeah, so we're done, right? So this 3 seconds, 5 seconds doesn't work when it comes to cars. If I want the car to take a decision, it needs to be quicker. Okay, now let's go to the second layer of challenge here. If
And
you want to make it quick,
it's funny. Recently I was driving from Berlin to Munich and got my friend's beautiful Audi S5, brand new stack and everything, and going, 260, 280 on the Autobahn, and I'm afraid to sneeze because there was some construction on the side and the two lanes were extremely tight, and I thought if I sneeze, I'm dead. So
no.
how does that play into the Mercedes Nvidia story?
So now every time we're talking about autonomous cars, and we've seen the funny videos sometimes of Tesla like going rogue or the Google car crashing into humans in a different setup, but it's been always a problem of response and where do you store the data of the visual. So you cannot have a data center inside the car, make sure all the data is processed, and you cannot also like rely on a 5G 6G connectivity as much as I'm big fan that connectivity will evolve and still evolving into this. But you still need to have a fast processor in a very cost efficient manner, because also if I put up very heavy cost, very cost, not cost, a very heavy power consumption chipset into the car, I'm draining the electric of the car. So I'm gonna like drive for 10 kilometers, and while the car's thinking, I'm done out of power. So you see the challenges here, and I can see here. So I'm really optimistic about what I'm seeing here is because like Nvidia came with like check low power, check fast response using six matching,
360 vision. Yeah.
yeah, and then visual analysis
So like
in
computer vision type of thing where you got some sensors, cameras processing everything in real time. And obviously there's some advanced logic there that it's not just staring through the camera like your grandma's looking at the Amazon doorbell camera in the front of your door, but it's actually processing
exactly.
incoming threats, speeds, wind, crashes in front.
And if you mix that with Mercedes, like famous quote, if you see a danger in Mercedes, we will stop. The problem is going to be the person behind you. So and so the response rate of the Mercedes cars has been always one of the best in reality there. So I see that next year is bringing autonomous cars a real challenger to the Teslas and the Chinese of the world trying to play the game here.
Now,
So
I know we got one more topic to jump into, but can you maybe give us some insight? How is that different from Tesla's current self-driving modes? And I know they're also, with something we've discussed, they're going in the direction of producing their own chips. They do have partnerships with Nvidia, but Elon has said it multiple times they are going in that kind of self-sustained direction as well. So how is this system of collaboration different from Nvidia and Tesla, or potentially Tesla doing things on their own in the future in terms of the approach they have to, autonomous driving and reaction times and all of that?
it felt that Nvidia talks about exclusivity with Mercedes. I might be wrong, but that's what I sensed. It was not said explicitly. So I don't see a reason why Elon will not be able to use these new chipsets in Tesla. I feel not, but I think the real edge here is Mercedes. Yeah, like Nvidia solved the problem, but actually, the electromechanics and the way Mercedes manages its cars is definitely way much more sophisticated than the Tesla. And Tesla was built with a full mindset of a light. It's actually a phone in the form of a car, but Mercedes has been manufactured bottom up as a car. So I think Nvidia low power, fast chipset and the model of the visual conversation. Because bear in mind, Nvidia also launched its own model here, while Tesla is using a different model, handmade model. So it's a competition of design, I guess, as well, not just the chipset. And that's what I like about Nvidia this year. They are really going with their own models. And then this is a good bridge to the next story because maybe we need to explain the value chain of the chips. It's not enough for Tesla to design chipset. Like we can design a chipset. So not gonna do it like Nvidia, but we can design a chips. It's not enough actually. It's a different value chain altogether, and Nvidia knows how to navigate the value chain of the chipset. Does this answer your question, or we?
Yeah, that definitely answers my question. And is there anything else maybe on the story that you think is worth paying attention to before we move on to the next one?
I would just say let's keep an eye on physical AI this year. Like every physical form of AI, like the bloats of the world, the now Nvidia into autonomous cars, the robots, the humanoids, intelligence in a physical form factor. This is something we should keep an eye this year. It's gonna be growing rapidly in 2026.
Well,
But
looking
I
forward to
exactly
see that.
what China is doing.
Let's go. Let's do it. So what's happening with China and the chips and the whole ASML story?
So there is a war or not in the world of 2026? What do you think? Do we have a war in 2026?
Oh, well, they say how the year starts, that's how it's going to go. We've already had some spicy situations down in Venezuela, which is very interesting. But it seems we have always some kind of an ongoing tech war. We talked last year about cables being cut underground that are connecting fiber to many people of the world, and we always have some kind of back and forth with technology and intellectual property and innovation changing hands, exchanging hands. So, what's the story with China, chips, ASML, and the Dutch government?
I really feel macro level there is something dramatically happening. So we keep hearing the American government saying Western Hemisphere, and that means there is an Eastern Hemisphere. Funny enough, that bundles Europe with Russia, which interesting. So and then we see the fallout of the sanctions of US on China. And I would also say if Venezuela is impacting China massively as well. So on this because of the oil exports, and almost 80% of the oil of Venezuela goes to China. And now let's see what will happen to that oil. Well, what all of that has to do with AI is, if we are assuming that now kind of US declared war on China and said, you're not going to get chipsets or technology from the US anymore. This was like, let's say, first Trump administration. Then China said, okay, we're going to find our way. And then they started deploying their own chipsets, and they took two tracks. Track of trying to use old chipsets to deliver um, efficient AI, and the other track of the photonic, which we heard last year, their announcement on the breakthrough of the photonic chipsets that actually bypasses the silicon advantage, if I can call it this way. This year, they said, yeah, we have finally announced the prototype that can mimic ASML. And here, you need to stop and look back and say, okay, all right, so they mimic ASML. So what, Amir? Like, what is the hell? So China has been always reverse engineering or stealing, if some others say anything. So you have a cup somewhere, and China will be doing it.
Hmm.
ASML is not just another phone, actually, that they just copied, or it's not another intelligent software that they just copied. ASML is the core of the chipset industry. And you know what? If you want to go into the roots of everything, let's talk agriculture. So, what do you need to do agriculture? Land,
Plants sow.
seeds,
I mean, you reap what you sow, right? And
yeah,
you have to
seeds.
process the land again afterwards to do the same thing all over again. And the better you can do it at scale, the obviously the more people you can feed, or the more supply of food you're gonna have.
So, if you have land, you add water, but you don't have seeds. Can you agriculture?
Of course not.
Of course not. Okay, let's
Some
talk
weeds, probably. Yeah.
yeah. If we go manufacturing a car, you need a factory, you need people, you need a design, but you still need a machine inside the factory to really mold with the factory and do it, unless you're gonna really do it all manual and use fire to do it, right? Chipsets is the same. There's a whole value chain around chipsets. So there's people that design. So you and me can design, Nvidia can design, Apple can design, Tesla can design. However you want to design, Google designs, you design your chipsets. So there's a big advantage here, and this is where the biggest bulk of the money, and also stock market's telling you that. The better the designers, the better the value, because this is where the edge is. This is where the money is. But there's one more layer. You can design whatever you want, but you can only print on a factory that can print. And the factories that actually should print chipsets, it's a $20 billion upfront investment to print the chipsets. And here, this is where Taiwan and Netherlands are the best. Are actually not the best. It's a monopoly in reality. They are the only ones who can do it.
And before we jump a little bit deeper in there, maybe to give our viewers a preview, if you are watching our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or any other place where we're displaying it, this is basically what the machine looks like. It's the size of an entire room. It's almost like the first computers looked like back in MIT labs in the 60s and so on. And it's a very complex process how they're printing these things. I mean, the amount of detail that goes into it, and the failure rate is so incredibly high that it's so hard to just do this, that basically one little speck or freckle that goes off in the whole process, and you gotta restart it from scratch, more or less. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yes, yes, it's like the Frankenstein machine. So, and actually, the machines are working with accuracy of 99%, rightfully, as you said, 24/7. And one machine of this is like 300 million. One. And so factories in Taiwan or Netherlands will need to buy those machines. And the only company in the world that produce these machines is ASML. Like the only, no one else. And I think with me, like take a second to digest this. We're talking all AI, and we are saying the wallet is in computing, the wallet is in chipsets, the wallet is in GPUs, TPUs, or whatever you call it, and it's one company
So
produced the
it's
machine.
a very massive market and a very small, tight choke point controlling the flow of the water. Let's put it that way, and the money.
It's literally the small little detail. If you just tick, the whole value chain crashes. So China just announced that they copied it, and they had a functioning prototype. So how impactful is that? What do you think is this? Is it going to work?
It will work at some point, right? They're very good at copying and reverse engineering and, doing it in their own way, right? I mean, look at, for example, what Huawei is doing with cell phones. Arguably, a lot of the tech inside was, let's say, for lack of better word, stolen from Apple and Samsung and other companies. And now they're producing the same thing as technology-wise in terms of GPUs, in terms of power, but they're adding more features, better cameras, better hardware at a fraction of the price. So I think it's only a matter of time before they catch up and figure it out.
Best assumption is 7 years. If they allow
Yeah, I
them
heard
to do
something around 10 years. That will still take
it.
them about 10 years. Yeah.
So they have announced that they did it. They have the machine. And there's a lot of rumors of how they got the design, because like you can imagine a design of machines like this is like um, almost like getting it 40 lux to get this design in reality. So or reverse engineer it or copy it or take spare parts is kind of somehow it can self actually destroy if you try to disassemble it, as we can get the designs to do that. On China news themselves, they are claiming that they had engineers with allies, with different aliases working in ASML and getting inside information, which is like literally very weird world we're living in now. People go and like do whatever they want, and then yeah, catch me if you can. So that's what happened. So China announced that they have finally broke through and created this prototype copying ASML, and now they're capable of within the coming 5 to 6 years to build their machines. So now, just if we take a step back and we look at this, so the sanctions has been for almost what 9 years now.
Sounds
And
about right. Yeah.
when I looked at this story, I was like, how the hell they were doing it for the last 9 years, and how the hell they gonna do it for the coming actually 7 years, and if we're saying everything now is gonna be centered around chipsets, it's gonna be centered around it's not gonna be. It is centered around chipsets. It's centered around CPUs. It's centered around compute and AI. So how is China doing it? How is China doing it? And actually, even worse, how is Russia doing it? So it's interesting, right? So if now we suddenly dragged into a world where everything is done by chipset, and this chipset is only done in a company in Taiwan, another company in Netherlands as a printing, and this chipset is only designed in um, superiority in reality in Western powers, English speaking powers. How's the rest of the world behaving with that? And is it like completely now so unbalanced in a way that it's only one world managing the rest, or how the others are dealing with it? So I started digging deeper and looking there. First, mind blowing fact was the Chinese have been using. So let me just make sure I get my audience first on the same page with us. So let's say that the token of actually measuring the advancement of a chipset is the size of the chipset. So for the sake of like simplifying the conversation, we're going to talk about 500 nanometer.
So let's put it simply: the smaller, the better.
Yes, exactly. But the
You don't want to be
500,
carrying. You don't want to be carrying the old brick phones that you need a whole suitcase. That you want the
yeah,
little foldable.
simplified. So when we say 300 nanometer, this is a dishwasher. Like that's the maximum logic you can get. Like press a button, push some water. So it's nice. It helps. It relieves a lot of housework. But when we are on the 300, we're talking about the dishwasher. When we go into the 40, like this is the old Intel Panther CPU, like the was even called Panther. You remember the first CPU, the one that we were used to buy it in the 1995, 2000. That's like the one that if you use it now on a machine, you get a heart attack of slowness.
I was still watching Lion King at that time, so I can't recall.
So that's Buntin, if that was the name. So this is like if we talk that we talk about a
Wasn't it
compute
Pentium?
Pentium.
Pentium.
Pentium. It's the Pentium. So if we talk about 40, that's the Pentium. Then if we go down to maybe the 10, then we're talking about Apple iPhone, the first one. And then if we go down into like now AI, we have to talk about 2 nanometer and above and less, which doesn't exist. So we talk about 2 to 3 nanometers. So this is the Felix. Now let's see what China can do, what Russia can do, and how they are competing actually. So so China, digging deeper in what they're doing, they're using the machine that actually builds the 40. So 40 is like the Pentium, the computer, the Pentium. And they're using that machine that does the 40 nanometer and producing the 7 nanometer.
Hmm.
And that's a mind blowing fact. So, what they're doing is they start actually using the engine with a high accuracy, fully relying on the accuracy of the engineer to keep pushing into the same spot, so to move from the 40 to the 7. And the maximum that they could achieve with that is 7. That's still 3 times what Nvidia does during normal Tuesday. So, and with the ASML. So they have no way actually to either do anything on that competition without going to the 2 nanometers. So they have been going from the 40 to the 7, relying on the people. And then I said, okay, let's see what Russia is doing.
And there's no news in the headlines. Google it. There's no news of chips coming out of Russia in the past 2 years since Nvidia kind of became relevant again in the conversation. So yeah, what is Russia doing, Amir?
First, black market, China, like real mainstream. Official announcement of Russia, we have our own chipsets, which actually, by all means, is not the case. Because they have a big celebration 2 years ago. Big celebration. Big celebration. Right. Putin like congratulating the people on that milestone of achievement for the AI industry of Russia. They managed to get this 300 nanometer. So
They
washing
finally
machine.
got a dishwasher
Yeah, exactly.
20 years
So
later. Yeah.
exactly. So I doubt it. They are actually doing something with this 300. So I would say most of the informal reports saying gray market, secondhand chipsets that are smuggled through Hong Kong, China going into Russia and being reused to build their own tech. So the roadmap of Russia is going to the 40 nanometer in 5 years from now. 40. We're talking about 2.
Hmm.
Nvidia. So
You're
it's
still
far.
talking about the equivalent of a microwave versus your thin little iPhone or iPad, let's say.
Eh, We're and in 5 years they will reach the Pentium of 1995. It's like no, like so they cannot really advance. This is simply means like it's not working. So and now if you remember one of our rules, we don't discount intelligence of people, right? So they must be doing something that we don't understand. And given knowing the Russians, when we talk about um, they asked their astronauts to write with a pencil when there is a challenge of a pen to write in the space. So they always find a way. And their current way, which is really a mind blowing fact, they changed the design aspects and said, okay, we're not gonna care about size. It's all about compute. So if it takes the
Can we
Americans
pause there? Our editor, let's put a big headline for this, the name of this podcast. We don't care about size anymore.
exactly so in that context, please. So so and so Russians decide, okay, I'll let you go and do your own
You
computer
guys
or
can have the
processor
chip
or
war.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the small phone, but we're gonna put 10 dishwashers next to each other and make it work. And you can see now in how they are, especially in the defense industry, if you following the rockets and things that they're using really big sizes, and that's mainly because of using this big computing power. It's literally having a data center inside
Hmm.
the rocket or the tanker or the machine to do this. So Russia went is, you know what, we're gonna do it in our own way. We're not gonna rely on anyone else, but we're gonna start using big sizes and make this work. China said, We're gonna reverse engineer it. Let's copy it, guys. Copy with pride. We're gonna make it happen, and we do it ours. And sue me if you can. So and that's when they came with the ASML. Very interesting to see where this lands, but it only tells as well that this world is not gonna stop with sanctions, and we're splitting, and each people will find their own rules of engineering and fine. And I would also still say there is always a way, and I really I like it actually. I like what they're doing. Actually. There's always they finding a way, and it's gonna evolve somewhere. And given again macroeconomic that the people that have brains or the mix of the diverse brains in the Western world has been blended with Asia. And if suddenly those Asian blended manpower in a way or another being blocked from being in the US, whether Trump decides to send them all home or China managed to keep them all there, with that evolution, I see quick leapfrogs that China gonna do in the coming 5 years. If this problem here doesn't get solved, then we start depending on each other again, and then we all go into using one um, single platform, if I can call it this way.
Hmm.
Talking about stealing, let's go to the next.
Let's go to the next story. So something we've covered briefly in some of our podcasts last year is Zuck from Facebook, from Meta, Instagram, whatever you want to call it now. He's been stealing. He's been stealing and poaching a lot of engineers from Apple, from OpenAI. We've heard stories of him giving, $10 million per year salaries, 100 million signing bonuses. So they suck when it comes to the whole AI game. They got all the money in the world. Arguably, they've invested a lot in different projects like the Meta glasses and the metaverse, which we haven't seen pay off yet. He's been nearly crucified by his board of directors for all these different decisions. If he wasn't obviously the majority still equity holder in Meta, the argument could be made that any other CEO of that position could have been sacked by now for kind of burning through piles and piles of cash from something that hasn't paid off. Now, the story that nobody's really talking about it, I got an email from my favorite AI automation agent tool, Manus AI. No plug, no sponsorship, but you guys are welcome to sponsor us if you'd like. And basically, there's a short announcement. Hey, we've just been acquired by Meta for, I believe it's $2 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the first order of thinking is like, oh, wow, maybe Meta, maybe Facebook's going to do these agentic AI features inside their applications. Maybe, if you're using the advertisement suite within Meta, like you're running ads to the local businesses, or, that's, I guess, the main monetization model they had, right? They have all this information about you. So we can tailor the perfect ad to that dog mom who's 47 years old and she likes to eat ice cream every Friday. We're going to sell her ice cream for her dog because we know she's got money. We know what neighborhood she lives in. And that was their business model. We're going to charge you per click on the ads that she's responding to, or we're going to charge you for impressions or whatever the case may be. Now, the second order thinking is there's something bigger at play here. So again, Meta Facebook has been behind in the whole AI game, and really we haven't seen any breakthroughs. And now they just acquired Mana, so we think they're going to use this automation. But the bigger play here is a theft of talent. Obviously, for me being in the recruitment world, it's interesting to see this. I'm often actually hired as a mercenary, and somebody will come to me and they say, "Hey, we have this very unique programming language that only 1,000 people in the world are known for. Here's Cambridge, here's Oxford, here's MIT, here's the top universities, or here's this company and that company where our target audiences work." And I have to, as a recruiter, mail those people, reach out to them, call them, and say, "Hey guys, I need to persuade you to take this job at another startup that, is not as prestigious." So the bigger move there is he basically stole Manus's time, Manus's talent, and there's a bigger play there from Zuck. So what is that big business trick? What is the magic? Sim Salabim. What is the big thing he's actually trying to execute there, Amir?
I wouldn't call it stealing, but I'll call it heist actually, because I feel like, and also that the irony of the heist here is that China is the one accusing him of heisting its own tech. So there is a reciprocal regulations between China and the US. When the US sanctioned China on tech, China also sanctioned US on tech. So before I tell you what I think is in the play as well, what really captured my eye is the whole deal, the 2 billion deal above, finished in 10 days. And suddenly Manos is not a Chinese company, it's a Singaporean company. And how's that actually is coming into play there. So so that's the two things I want to note before I tell you what's in play. So what is in play? I think agentic AI is, as we mentioned earlier, we're talking about SaaS. Agentic AI is the new, is the next logical step after Gen AI. Like, agentic AI has to keep doing the work. So we've seen trends on agentic AI in physical, and then we see now getting into this agentic AI. If you follow the acquisitions of Meta in the last 10 years or so, most of them till 2022 was in the AR area, VR AR, and then suddenly all moved into the AI area, which is aligned with their announcement strategy, and has been always around actually capturing talent. And to be honest, Mark Zuckerberg is not hiding it. He always says, "I don't acquire companies; I acquire talents." So first benefit for them, AI talent on an agentic AI. If you bundle that with Scale AI, the biggest announcement of actually end of last year, then he's building the full stack of taking control of the AI talent on the bigger scale into his company and integrating agentic AI into his platforms. The second one, when I integrate agentic AI into the platforms, I think it's moving Meta platforms in general from the dashboard, the billboard that you see it in the street, to become the shop that you can execute the action in. So there was an interesting acquisition for a CRM business chat called Customer with K, like I think 6-7 months ago, and looking at Customer, which is a business chat slash CRM, Scale AI, and then Manos Agentic AI, he is making you go into a virtual store instead of looking at the billboard and making money out of that. That would be my guess here. So still aligned with the new trends of the year. And I would say we're going to close the episode now. I would actually say welcome 2026. Happy to see you evolving around these topics. People of the industry, people of the tech, the TrickCasters, have a close look on physical AI trends, have a close look on chipsets and the reliability on chipsets and what is happening around these value chain. Things are changing very quickly now. Screen producers, God help you, don't
You
invest
might
in.
be in trouble. You might need Amir's and his team's consulting services to survive in the next
Yeah,
couple of years.
exactly. And then the last one is agentic AI is the right way nowadays. And if you're not there yet, please step in and make sure that agentic AI is embedded into your strategy on AI. It's moving very quickly, and ring defense your talent. You cannot really defend it against Marpizo, but at least the next door company. And watch out for Alex. He's like a big assassin here.
I'm gonna
So,
headhunt your best engineers.
yeah.
Oh, Amir, that's very well put. Thanks as always. Now to our audience again, thank you for watching, listening. We're gonna see you guys and girls in 2 weeks. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments, reach out to us on LinkedIn or via email and anywhere else where you can find our podcast.
If you
Until
like
next
us
time,
to host one of your big celebrities in tech, let us know. We'll reach out
we
and
could
make sure.
potentially interview them. Elon coming in by 2030, hopefully.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Until next time, Amir, thank you so much.
Cheers, man.
Take care. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.